house right now. I'm in the process of moving, so lots of work. But I've came across your work a while back, and I said, I would love to talk with him to learn about some of this stuff pertaining to Islam. And so the question I brought today was, is Islam Judaism? And then I figure from there, we can just go off into any and each discussion that might be relevant to early Islam as it relates to the monotheistic traditions and even the pre-Arabian traditions, how that might play a role. But before we do, I wanted to ask, is it possible that you could tell my audience what your background is, what your expertise is, things like that, what you've been working on, maybe something you're currently working on, and then we can dive in.
Okay. Well, academically, I'm a trained rabbi. So I'm an ordained rabbi, and I don't practice in that I don't have a synagogue congregation. I practice as an academic. I teach in a Jewish seminary for rabbis, and I also teach in a large university, secular private university in Los Angeles. I have a PhD in Arabic and Islamic studies. I've lived in Egypt and other parts of the Muslim world. I've also lived in Israel for many years, and I'm pretty familiar with both traditions and the languages that are involved in the traditions. And I find them both fascinating and beautiful and fun to study and to learn about, and very important to understand deeply.
Thank you. So simply put, you have a few books here. Jihad, The Origin of Holy War in Islam. Who Are the Real Chosen People? Looks like you've co-authored in a few of these as well. Trialogue, Jews, Christians, and Muslims in Dialogue. Journeys in Holy Lands. An Introductory to Islam for Jews. You've written quite a bit, and you've co-authored and probably edited Children of Abraham, An Introduction to Judaism for Muslims. One of them that really caught my eye is Who Are the Real Chosen People? Of course, that's going to off the gate, curiosity gets you, right? And you go, oh my gosh, it's got to be one or the other, right? Yeah. But then again, you can go into the Hebrew Bible and find that actually there seems to be a tradition for what seems to be the Ishmaelites as well, that they're favored in some sense. But I'd be curious to see what you say. I have not read your work, so I'd like to know what you think of that at some point. But is Islam Judaism?
That's a good question, and it's a good question to interrogate a little bit. I mean, why would someone ask the question in the first place? I'm not casting aspersions on you for asking the question, but it's a question that would be asked in a Western Christian context, right? So, in fact, in the Middle Ages, several Christian writers felt that Jews and Muslims were allies against Christianity, and that Islam is sort of a poor version of Judaism. Both of them are wrong because they don't accept Christ and as a Christ Messiah, as a savior. Now, Islam does accept Jesus and refers to Jesus even in the Quran as the Messiah, Messiah in Arabic, but doesn't accept Jesus as Son of God or certainly as that kind of a figure. So one could say, of course, Islam is not Judaism. They have separate traditions, they have different scriptures, but they both revere the same God, as does Christianity. In a way, one could say all of the monotheistic traditions are one religion, right? All accept the notion of a singular God, all pray to the same God. They just have different traditions. I mean, how do we define a religion in the first place? I mean, is Catholicism and evangelical Christianity the same religion? Not sure. What would you say?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I mean, they're miles apart in many ways, and then they have a common core in some ways. And yeah, there's differences. Big time. Yeah,
so you can look at the monotheistic traditions like as a big tribe. And each tribe has its own clans. Ethnic groups or clan groups make up tribes. And within the clans, they have their own extended families. And within the extended families, they have their own nuclear families. So we're all related in some way. And yet we all have our profound differences, and those differences are significant. And sometimes they are very significant, and sometimes they're made in order to be significant. They are emphasized in order to distinguish when, in fact, the three traditions have a lot in common. So, yeah. So, and all that denominationalism that we see in Christianity, where there are thousands and thousands of denominations of Christianity, we also see in Judaism and in Islam as well. So, yeah, I guess I could be a little bit risky and say, yeah, it's the same religion.
Ooh, okay.
But it's really not.
Right. I get it. Yeah. Okay. I appreciate this. Maybe we can probe into a little more. Specifically, I think I'm going to have you obviously explain the Jewish side of things, especially as we're approaching the time period in which the Quran comes up. I take an early approach. I think the Quran is early, at least from Uthman, but I would imagine the tradition goes back to the Prophet. I have no problem with that. I'm going to call him the Prophet. I'm just going to say Muhammad, the Prophet, because we know who we're talking about here. But also, I want to know, when I asked that question, you talked about how there's Christians who are saying they come together and they're pretty much one unit against us. Are there scholarly reasons to think that, asking that question is relevant?